Can you keep a secret? Because we have one. Sunday, July 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern on our Fun Astrology YouTube channel, Kristin, Elisa, and I are doing a special webinar on Saturn and Neptune in Aries, particularly through the lens of those of you who are going through a Saturn return and have Saturn in Aries, because what you're going to experience is a great lesson for the rest of us. So mark your calendars, Sunday, July 13th, 1 p.m. Eastern. We chose that time so that those of you on the West Coast can join us too. But don't tell anybody, it's a secret. We don't want all of your friends who love astrology to know about this. Just keep it to yourself. Welcome to the Fun Astrology Podcast for Wednesday, July 2nd. Kristin and Thomas with you here, and we are going to roll right into the next chart in the series, which is actually the chart that began it all. It was my chart in Gemini rising. Now, the first place to look for this Gemini rising chart is what is the degree of the ascendant. Here is another late degree ascendant. Kristin's was late. The Taurus chart that we just did had an early degree ascendant. So in the Taurus chart, most of the first house, in fact, all of the first house would be Taurus, and then it would overlap into the next house a wee little bit. This is backwards because it's a late degree rising sign. We're going to be looking up here at the house that's ruled by a previous sign to find 0 degrees. So, case in point, 0 Aries is just past Pisces. See, here's 28 degrees Pisces, basically. 2 degrees past that. There's 0 Aries. You can just draw that in your chart. Eyeball where it would be. Here would be 0 Aquarius, and here would be 0 Gemini. So there we have constructed then the Great Pyramid. Hopefully you're getting the pattern of that now as you're watching through these each time. That's the starting place. Then you read the chart. And obviously this is a chart that I know pretty well, so let's just circle a couple of major points. There's Mars and Tune. I mean, that's what literally drives my life. And then we could circle here Uranus and Pluto, two of these there are the other 2 planets right there. So how then do these weave into the structure of this? Well, one thing we have, looky here, we have quincunxes. So we have a quincunx to Mars and Tune and a quincunx down to here, so that makes a yod. And also, from this point, which is when Uranus moves into 0 Gemini, that also makes a yod. So we have one going that way. We also have a couple of very important squares. Here is one right here. So this is between Mars and Tune and transiting Pluto. And then also from the Uranus point, 0 Gemini, is a square to natal Pluto. So that's another big deal right there. So we have at least a couple of primary quincunxes and a couple of squares. So you don't know me, how would you interpret that if somebody dropped that chart in your lap to say, what do you think about this?
Well, it very much looks to me like you are at a crossroads. You have yods that are pointing in many different directions, and not to mention the kite that is being created between the pyramid and your nodal axis. So this is a karmic kind of turning point, but the base of that kite is your north node. So that's really where this force is being pushed from. That is the kind of key underliner that is kind of steering the kite. And, this is a karmic moment for you that you're kind of able to choose which direction you want to go in.
I wanted to clean this up and show you what Kristin was talking about right there. These are 2 sextiles of the Great Pyramid. You need to really implant this in your mind. Then there's a trine between the 2 at the base, all right? 2 sextiles and a trine. So at the top, which is the 0 Aries point, the world point, the Aries vortex point, look across from that in your own chart. Just look right across from it and see if there's anything down there. And what she was saying is that it's on this nodal axis, which is this north and south node are always opposite each other. Since this is so close to the south node, you can just come across and bingo, you've got an opposition to that 0 Aries point, all right? Look in your charts and see. Find 0 Aries in your chart And if you have something across from it, then you can draw in the kite. And that's exactly what Kristin was talking about. So you mentioned the transformation, you mentioned the karmic points of choice, and the kite is very powerful positively. So this is all a very positive thing.
Yeah, definitely. A kite is a super positive formation. It's catching the wind of the universe and kind of being able to, use the typical air qualities of ideas and communication and the cerebral and being able to make things of what you're pushing your thoughts forward, really.
With Pluto being in that eighth house, one of the things that I've come to reconcile with this is that, think of the eighth house, Pluto rules it. That's the house in natural zodiacal order that's ruled by Scorpio. So things are going to change. And for those of you who are Gemini rising, or if because of the degree of your ascendant, you find Pluto over in that eighth house, and I would use the equal system, I really would, but you can use whole sign, you can use Placidus. If Pluto is in your eighth in this structure, there are going to be changes. And as you guys know, we just had a change around my career. There's the 0 Aries point. There's eighth house stuff so that more space can open up for both of us to do our own things. So in the end, positive. Pluto is going to get rid of things that are in your way. It's going to get rid of things that are holding you back. It's going to get rid of things that are not aligned with your path. This is your path. So what Kristin is saying is positive changes. And that when she said that grand trine, that's just the triangle part down here of the lower part of the kite. But now, Kristin, let's talk about, so here's a square, and then these other quincunxes, the challenges that are embedded in this chart.
I think challenges is a word that I get some grief, but squares are often action that needs to be taken to, really make this kite fly. And you're really having to put forth, especially the dynamic between other people's energy and your creative vision. That is the square between your Mars in tune and the Pluto. And then the other square is that 12th house versus the third, and being able to communicate your unconscious and making it clear for people to understand. And both are actionable items that will come up quite a bit in these next 6 years.
Well, that's excellent. Exactly as you said it. It was just perfect. Because what that chart has allowed me to do is to release these things as they come up. That whole thing with the Old Soul, New Soul podcast, that was a mutual decision, but we had been running out of compatible ideas. So it was mutual that we just said, hey, look, let's just do our own thing. Namaste, all is well. And that is when I ran it through that filter, it was just made total sense. And there's all kinds of stuff that we're talking about and other things we're going to be doing around here. So, it just lifted a lid basically that I needed more time. Well, see, all of that's positive within those changes. But just like you said, the action needs to take place there. If you'd like to see a contrast between this and the Taurus chart, go back and look at the Taurus video. Go to the playlist on YouTube, or you can just look for the thumbnail. But the Taurus video shows a contrast of positive aspects, and this person's business has just really taken off in several ways. So there more is like greased skids path there, more climbing up the mountain for me. And I'm used to that because that's that whole chart. So it's like, okay, comfortable. Like, well, duh, of course I'm not going to get greased skids with this. But I'm so glad that you pointed out that kite, Kristin, because that shows the karmic path. And you know me well enough to know, to me, that's the most important thing in the world.
Yeah. You have some really great years ahead of you, and that kite really shows that push to both the 10th house and being ruled by the 11th, the community and the space that you're creating.
Wow. Well, it's exciting. So we will come back and do Cancer next in our little series. We're going to go, except for Leo, Kristin, we'll hop over hers. By the way, did you have a good birthday last week?
Oh, so wonderful. Everybody spoils me as always.
Good. All right. We'll see you for Cancer next Wednesday. Thanks for listening and watching.